Hey everyone, let's talk about the different monitors that we use, specifically the ones that go on top of cameras. So these are the ones that camera operators will use when they're actually shooting, instead of looking at the tiny little LCDs that are on the cameras themselves. I have kind of a variety of different models here, not because I necessarily intended to purchase a different variety, to test them out or whatever, but mostly because some of the models that I purchased became discontinued after I'd had them for a while, and these were purchased more or less one at a time as I've added additional cameras into the arsenal. So yeah, there is some variation between models here. So we're going to talk about, I think it's 6 different monitors here today. And these are the ones that we use pretty regularly. So first thing I'm going to mention is I'm going to be connecting into the Blackmagic Design camera converter. So this guy here. To convert, mostly because this is what we use on camera, and figure it makes sense to demonstrate the actual way we connect things for real. One of the nice things about this is it has both SDI and HDMI outputs, so I can use monitors that have either type. The monitors I'm going to be showing here today are mostly budget-friendly that don't include SDI, and so having that HDMI output on here is very, very nice. The cameras that I use almost all have SDI, so it's nice that these do conversion from SDI to HDMI. So, all right, the first one to take a look at here is one from Neewer. This is called the DC70. It's no longer sold, although there is another model that's very similar, and I'll show you those because I have one of those here. I've had these a couple years. A couple things I really like about this one. First of all, the sunshade is built right in and opens up just by opening the front flap. It's really relatively easy to move. You just stick a screwdriver in the little tab there and insert that and twist, and it comes off. These are LCD, and they have just a couple of inputs. They have an HDMI, and then they have composite video input on there. And there's also an HDMI output, so HDMI in, HDMI out. They run off both AC or DC power, technically. They come with a DC adapter, so I had to purchase them separately. But it runs on 12-volt DC or on Sony NPF style batteries, and they do last quite a while on a battery. So when I've had to run these on battery, I've never actually exhausted one. So I'm not 100% sure exactly how long they run, but it is quite a while. Image quality on these is actually pretty good, especially considering the resolution on the panel. I believe is 1280 by 800, if I remember right. I'm having to do this off the top of my head because the original page, web page where I bought these from on Amazon, no longer exists, and so it doesn't have. I couldn't find any specs on them. So I actually do really like these monitors quite a bit, not just because of the sunshade, but the image quality is quite good. Even though it's not full 1080, it's still good enough to do focusing on. It works just fine for that. But I really do love having the sunshade on there, because not only does it help to see the monitor in bright conditions, but it also does a great job of protecting the screen. So it's that easy to open and close. That was the main reason I picked these. So I'm just going to connect these up briefly so you can get kind of an idea for how bright they are. I'm under some pretty bright lighting here. So if the monitor is able to keep up under these conditions and show up on camera, then it has to be relatively bright. So let that power up here. So these monitors do have one little quirk. If they lose signal on the HDMI input, there we go. If they lose signal on the HDMI input while they're turned on, sometimes when the signal comes back, they don't detect it, and I have to flip the power switch off and back on. So just one little weird quirk there. Not enough to be a deal breaker for me. It might be for some, I don't know. But anyhow, so the image quality on these is actually quite good. Nice deep blacks. It is a reflective, glossy screen, as you can see there, which can be a problem under certain lighting conditions, but having the sunshade on there does make that less of an issue. As far as mounting to the camera, it comes with a mount that looks like this, which screws onto the bottom. And then it has the cold shoe, which slides into one of the shoe mounts on your camera. So that's the Neewer DC70. Now, move on to a very similar monitor. About a year ago, when I needed to replace or add an additional monitor like this, I went shopping, and they were no longer available. And so I had to find something else, and then I found Viltrox DC70 EX, I believe. No, DC72, it's Roman numeral 2. And this monitor is more or less identical. The connections on the back are the same sunshade. I believe it's even probably the same panel in there, although it does seem a little bit less reflective. But this one will take a 4K signal. So if you're shooting 4K and you have to run a signal out of your camera directly to a monitor, you can absolutely do that. So again, it's the same 1280 by 800 resolution. You can see it's not quite as deeply. It doesn't have quite the same contrast, but I believe that's because of the matte screen instead of the glossy screen. But again, great monitor. I really love the ability to just open and close and have that sunshade on there. So this monitor is still available, and there's a link in the description down below. All right, so next. At one point, I decided that I wanted to have one really high quality monitor, and so I got this Small HD AC7, and this is the OLED variant of that monitor. So I picked one of these guys up. This monitor absolutely does have amazing picture quality, but it wasn't very well calibrated from the factory, and it's still a little off. I've spent quite a bit of time tweaking it, and I haven't gotten to be absolutely perfect. But the blacks are very, very rich, because anybody familiar with OLED knows that blacks are really black. There's no white there whatsoever. Colors are quite vibrant, maybe a little bit too vibrant if you're looking for absolute accuracy. But this monitor works really, really well. It does have, in addition to HDMI, it does have SDI, and it actually has an SDI loop through. However, it's not a 3 gig SDI port. It only does HD SDI. So resolution's up to 1080i. The HDMI, on the other hand, does accept 1080p up to 60 frames a second. So in addition to that, there are some other connections on here. There are component video as well. So if you still have analog, you can hook that in there as well. So again, also runs on 12 volts. All these monitors run on 12 volts. Thankfully, it's nice and standard. Again, spectacular image quality. The main downside to this one is price. The list price on it, or the normal street price on it, it's close to $1,000. This particular model is not sold anymore. It's been replaced by another one, which I think in some ways has downgraded a bit. It doesn't have the same inputs and whatnot. So, but I have really liked this monitor. One small issue with this is it didn't come with any sort of camera mount, so you have to provide your own. I use an Israeli arm on it, but anyway, so yeah, I've been very happy with that monitor. Pretty bright for an OLED. OLEDs tend to be a little bit dimmer than LCDs, but this one is pretty bright. And my camera guys love using this monitor because it does look so fantastic compared to some of the others. All right, moving on. Next one. This is another inexpensive Chinese brand. Kind of a strange name. It's called Feel World. I don't have the exact model number on this. I'll try and look that up and include that in the description, but it's not listed anywhere on the unit itself. It has connections here on the side for HDMI, composite video, headphone, and then a couple other miscellaneous ports like on-screen display controller, and then a USB upgrade, and then power jack here. Also has, like some of the others, has the Sony NPF battery mount on the back, but just in way of note, the Small HD does not. They offer one as an upgrade. It's rather expensive though. So yeah, this also runs on 12 volt, and it runs on Sony batteries as well. Hook this guy up. I'm not a huge fan of having the connections on the side like that. I feel like it's an opportunity to power this on, to knock that, because I think the cables are more exposed when they're on the side here than they are when they're on the back. And that's one of the other reasons that I went with this Neewer and the Viltrox, because the connections are on the back, and so they're out of the way, and you're far less likely to bump them. The nice thing about this Feel World is it actually has better image quality than some of these the other LCDs that I'm talking about here. So downside though is it doesn't have that cool sunshade. it came with this bracket to hold a sunshade, but it didn't actually include the sunshade in the package. So I thought that was kind of strange. But also did not have a good quality camera mount inside. So again, had to provide one as well. Again, the image quality on this is better than the newer, even though this is still pretty good. It's another one of those 1280 by 800 screens, but that's plenty sharp for most uses. A lot of these monitors actually do have focus assist built into. I think all the ones that I'm going to be demoing here do have focus assist built in. So even if the screen itself is not pixel for pixel for your video signal, it does offer the capability of showing you what parts of the image are actually in focus through that peaking feature. So this one it's not built quite as well as some of the others. It's a little cheesier in its build quality, but it does have, like I say, it does have a better quality image. So if image quality is more important than build quality of the monitor, this might be a decent option. So, all right. So this last time when I had to replace a monitor, one of these Newers got wet in the rain, and we had a kind of a surprise rainstorm that we weren't prepared for. I decided, because the prices had come down, that I was going to upgrade size a little bit. And so this one, all these others are 7-inch. This one is 9-inch. This is Viltrox, and this is the DC90, DC90 HD specifically. And it's very, very much like the smaller ones, with a few exceptions. Like the power jack is on the right side here. Fortunately, the HDMI is still on the back. The other big difference is that the panel in here actually is 1920 by 1200, and so you are seeing pixel for pixel if you're shooting 1080 on this monitor. It also does support a 4K signal as well, including pass-through, and it has the battery slot on the back. So again, you run Sony batteries on there. I haven't even tried this one on battery yet. I've only had this one a few weeks, but it's nice having the big screen. Camera operators who've used this really liked having the bigger screen. So moving forward, this is probably going to be my go-to on-camera monitor. And as far as mounting it on camera, it does include the same mount that I showed you some of the others. And again, it has that cool sunshade that I really like. So far, very happy with it, even though I've only had it a few weeks and haven't had a ton of time to test it. So again, Viltrox DC90 HD. All right, and the last one I wanted to demonstrate for you guys actually doesn't belong to me. It belongs to Paul. Those of you who watch the channel very often have met Paul. He just barely purchased this. This is about a month ago. Paul bought a 20-foot jib, and he wanted to have a nice big monitor so he could see what he was doing. So he bought this. This is a 13-inch screen. It's from the brand C-Tech, as you can see there on screen. It's a full 1080p panel, quite sharp. Image quality is a little bit washed out compared to some of these others. Like, that's one of the problems. Like, the bigger the screen, the harder it is to make your blacks as black as possible. So it's one of the sacrifices you make as you get a little bit bigger. But otherwise, the image quality is actually quite good. We did have to do some adjustments on the image quality in order to make it look as accurate as possible. The black level from the factory was too high, and we also had to turn down the sharpness a little bit in order to get see real detail, not artificial. In terms of connections, it has quite a few on the back. There's SDI, audio, video, which is composite video, so it still supports standard def, and then your YPRPB, so your composite video. And then, of course, there's an HDMI, and there's also a DVI, which also supports a VGA on the same connector as well. So quite flexible in terms of its inputs. And cool, it has mounting points on the sides, and then there's also an additional one on the bottom. Those are all 1/4-inch 20-thread mounts. In terms of power source, in addition to the battery that I mentioned, also runs out 12 volts through a barrel connection, or 12 volts through a 4-pin XLR. So we haven't had, he just barely bought this monitor, so we haven't really had a chance to put it through its paces just yet, but initial impressions are quite favorable. This one did include a sunshade, and it velcros on. It's not super big, but it'll help in some situations. So it's all metal, so it's actually built quite well. The construction is quite good. There's no flex in the casing whatsoever. So if you're needing a big monitor that is well built and going to stand up to some abuse, this actually seems like a good choice, at least as far as we can tell so far. So anyway, so there you go. 6 of the monitors that we use on camera. We have other monitors, obviously, throughout the trailer. I'll do another video on those at some point. But these are the monitors that we use on camera. And for the most part, we've been really happy with the ones that we've got, even though they're kind of lesser-known brands and kind of less expensive, aside from the OLED, which was quite spendy. Most of these other ones were in the $125 to $160 range. So if you need a relatively inexpensive monitor that can get you throw up on a camera, and especially if you need one that has a cool sunshade on it, these are all recommended. We're very happy with them. I'll include links to the ones that are still for sale down in the description. I appreciate you using those links. Those are affiliate links, so we get a little bit of compensation for you clicking on the link and purchasing through those sites. So if you guys have any other questions about any of these or any other equipment that we're using, please leave those in the comment section down below. I'll answer as best I can. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, I appreciate you doing that. We try and produce video production related content about once a week. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching and have a fantastic day.